Hey map builders, it's Josh with Map Effects. Do you want to create a map of a city, a village, or some other type of settlement with that classic hand-drawn style, but you're not really sure where to begin? Maybe you already have a map laid out, but the idea of learning how to draw just feels really overwhelming. Well, I created the City Map Builder with hundreds of hand-drawn features like buildings, ships, forests, banners, all kinds of stuff, so that you could really easily put those together to create a map for your story. Today I'm going to be using Procreate, but the City Map Builder is also compatible with Photoshop, Clip Studio Paint, and Affinity Photo. But regardless of what drawing app you choose to use, I just want to sit down with you as if you're looking in over my shoulder and just walk you through some of the features that are included and just give some tips on how to get started so that you can create a really cool looking map for your story. So to begin drawing our fantasy city map, first thing that we want to do is just come up here to import and just navigate to wherever you've saved the city map builder on your iPad, and then you can just tap on border templates, and we're just going to start with this standard 8x10 template. And the nice thing about using these is it already accounts for the bleed when you go to print it. So as long as you stay within the border of the map, you shouldn't have to worry about any of your map getting cut off when you go to print. So then we can come up here and we're just going to create a new layer and come up to the wrench icon here, and we're going to insert a file, go back to our City Map Builder file, and this time we're just going to select paper textures. And you can select any of the paper textures included, but I'm just going to go with this one here. And it's going to import it, and let's just size this up just a little bit so that it's taking up the whole document. And then we can come up here to our layers panel, and you're just going to tap and hold. Oh, there we go. Drag it down below the border layer so that your document looks like this. So now we can start drawing our city map. So once you have your canvas all ready, the first thing you want to do is come up here to your layer panel, and we're just going to create a new layer above our paper texture. That way everything's kept separate so you can really easily move everything around. But you'll see on the left here that there's all these different folders, and I've used these to kind of organize the features that are included so that you can find them a little bit more easily. So you have individual buildings like some of these water wheels, for instance, or you have a little farm here, or we have some bigger buildings up here at the top that are a little bit more ornate, like this guy here. This guy's pretty cool. I've included some trees and different things like that, and some balconies that you can include. But we also have groups of buildings, so if you wanted to lay out a city block really quickly, here, let's delete these real quick. You can throw one of those down, and if you wanted to, you can add another building group over here. And if we want to move these a little bit closer to one another, just come up here to our selection tool, make sure that freehand selection is on, and then you can just draw around it and just position this however you'd like it. And then we could add in another group of buildings right here. So you can either use the selection tool to rotate this like that, which works, or you can also rotate your entire canvas and stamp it, and you'll see that it'll just kind of orient to however you have the canvas. So whichever method you prefer, I tend to use both. So you can use that though to position this a little bit closer to here. And if you wanted to, it looks like there's kind of this open space right here. We could add in like a tree or something like that. So let's come into our vegetation, and there's some individual trees that you can select, like this guy here, and just stamp it just in the middle of this road here. You have this tree now that you can add in. And speaking of roads, if you wanted to, you can come up to the brushes, and there's some double-sided roads that you can add in. So if you wanted to, say, have a road that kind of started here and went off into the rest of the city, it is kind of like a stippling brush that just adds in a little bit of texture and kind of just implies a road. But if we wanted to now, there's this single edge one that's kind of an individual line of stippling, so that if you wanted to come back in, you could start here and just kind of follow roughly around the edges of these buildings to make a road that kind of goes all the way around this group of buildings. And you don't want the line to be too straight. You kind of want it to wander a little bit if you want it to have kind of that more organic feel. And of course you could come in here and you could add a little bit of texture around some of these buildings to break up the road, just like that. It's just a simple way to add a little bit of interest and flair to the rest of the map. So what if we wanted to add like a wall or something kind of around this city area? We could actually come back in here and let's just create a temporary layer above this one. And we're going to go into our folder that's labeled walls. And let's actually put in a few towers first. So we could take our tower brush and we could throw a tower here. Let's say we'll throw one here. There. There. And there. And let's just start with that. And then we can also come down here and you say that there's a few different city gates that you can include. So this one, we could rotate this. Whoops. And remember, we're working on a temporary layer, so let's just adjust this. Might be easier rather than trying to stamp it perfectly. So we'll just put it there and let's just erase away some of this for now so that you kind of have the road that's coming up to this gatehouse right there. And now we can come in and we can merge these down. So just tap on the layer and click merge down. And I'll create another temporary layer. And let's go up to our wall brushes that we have up here. So let's just select this one. And all you're going to do is you're going to tap on one of these towers and click and drag until you get to the next tower. And you'll see in Procreate it snaps it automatically to a straight line, which is a handy feature. And you can just draw to the next tower, to the next tower, and let's just go off the canvas this way. And then we could do it on this side. Click and drag until it snaps. Oops, forgot. So if I go this way, it's going to put the wall, or the battlements, I should say, for the wall on this side, and I want them on this side. So I need to actually draw it this way, or you can come up here and get the reverse brush so that it actually will work in reverse. See how the battlements are now on this side? But we'll just stick with this one. Oop, I did it again. I'm getting all confused on what brush I'm actually using. Anyway. Click and drag until it snaps into position. And now we can come back in here. And since this wall is on its own layer from these towers, we can just come in here and erase away wherever it's overlapping. And this is just a much faster way to draw a wall than having to draw all of these individual crenellations and things like that. This makes this much quicker. And then we have a little city wall that's going around this front half of our city map that we can start adding to. So if we wanted to, we could come back in here now and we could do some individual buildings. Come up here and we could add in kind of like a fully landscaped palace like this, and we could add that up here. Or we could add in kind of this villa, and I have a version that has either no trees on it or one that has trees and a little bit of landscaping, just so that you can pick and choose with a few of these more ornate buildings. You'll see that there's also a simple version of this one as well. That way you kind of have the option on if you would rather have this or the one that has the landscaping already included on it. You can just kind of decide whichever you prefer to use. Or if we scroll down here, you have some little bit smaller buildings that you can also add. They're not all these big buildings. Sometimes you need a bunch of these smaller, more typical buildings that you could add in for like a blacksmith or an inn or something like that. And you'll notice that if you go through all these buildings, there are 90 individual buildings that are included. I haven't labeled most of them what they are, and I did that on purpose. There's a few of them that I did because I wanted to clearly convey that, you know, this is a water wheel, right? But with a lot of these ones, I didn't label them because I want you to be creative in coming up with whatever you want. I didn't want you to feel like if I labeled that this is an inn, that you can only use it as an inn, because that's silly. It can be whatever you want it to be. So I purposely didn't label most of these just so you felt like you had creative freedom to just combine them together and see what you come up with. And since we're just kind of playing around, let's just erase away some of these for now, just so you can kind of get a feel for what else is in here. So let's just come in here to these terrain brushes. And you'll see that I've got some shorelines as well as some cliffs that you can add in here. So if you wanted to add, like, let's say a cliff back here. Whoop. See how this is the high point of the cliff and it's kind of tapering down this way. That's why the overlap is on this side. So if we wanted to, we could combine a few of these, like this one here, and just stamp it. And generally I like to just kind of stamp it wherever, and then I'll use the selection tool to move it in position. That's just the method that I like to use, but your mileage may vary. So you can just stamp another one, selection tool, and just move it however you want. And then if you wanted to, you could kind of put like a pathway that's going up between these cliffs. So we can come back into our paths. Let's just say it's coming off the city. We can just start here, and it kind of meanders up this cliff, almost like these slopes come down, so that you could then put some type of a more important, like that palace building that we had. Or let's go with this one here. We could just stamp that up here, almost like the royal building, if you will, is kind of on top of this cliff overlooking the rest of the city, like that. And then we can finish off this path like this and just have it weave to the front of this palace. And we could add in some trees or some vegetation up here. You can see there's some larger groupings of trees that are like almost a whole forest that you can add in. Or there's more individual trees or smaller groupings of trees if you wanted to throw in a couple here, add a couple there. And let's use this bigger one, but let's create a temporary layer. And we'll just stamp it over here, and then we can just kind of position it so that it's kind of going part way off the map. And then you can just erase away here. And I find it's always kind of a nice thing to have your map go beyond the borders, because then it makes it feel like it's much bigger than what they're showing, because now it feels like, okay, so how far does this forest continue? Generally, we tend to show too much when we have our maps. It's almost better to have a smaller map that's a little bit more zoomed in, so we can really focus on what's happening in these buildings, what's happening up here in the palace, and you can always expand on it and add to your story. So don't feel like if you're drawing a city map, it has to all be contained within the one map that you're making. You could always add to it and add other maps. That's kind of your bonus tip for the day. But if we wanted to come in here and we can add in like a name banner or something like that, we'll just come up here, create a temporary layer, and just stamp this. And let's just drag it up here. And you can position this however you'd like, but this one's kind of interesting because I designed it so that it looks like it's wrapping around the border. So if we come back up here into our border layer, we can actually erase away everywhere the border would be obscured by this banner. I'm just going to do this quickly. You can be more careful with it yourself, but this just kind of gives you the idea. And we'll just erase away this whole section up here. There we go. But again, you can get creative with it. And now it looks like this banner is kind of wrapped around this border. But just a couple more things, just so you can kind of get a better idea of what else is included in here. Let's just undo that erasing that I just did. We're just going to clear this out. You know what? Let's just get rid of all of it. We'll just start over. So the other thing that you can also play with are some of these other terrain brushes, like if you wanted to add in a coastline or even a river, you can use these to make a river. You can just kind of stamp this here, and just like we did with the cliff, and just build it up however you want. And we can just kind of position this until this lines up here. So then we can have our water all over here. And then if we come down here to our water folder, you'll see there's a bunch of ships and different things like that that you can also include. So you can stamp those in the water. So we have kind of a larger sailing boat, or a couple of smaller like individual boats like these, or even a small wood boat. And you can just kind of mix those up. And then if you ended up creating a harbor or something like that, you could use this. And let's actually create a temporary layer just so I can show you how I would probably do it. So let's just rotate this around. And you can see we have a nice wood dock here that we can position. Just erase wherever the coastline overlaps. And this little boat is kind of in the wrong spot now. So we'll just move him. Can just rotate him, and let's just put him next to the dock, something like that. We can just come up to our buildings, and we'll just scroll up to, let's go with this one here. This one kind of looks like it's a harbor because it has a bunch of crates and stuff that are stacked around it, so that we can just kind of build up a little harbor area over here with our boats and our dock. And then if we wanted to, we can come back in here to the water. And you'll actually see that there's some waterfalls that are in here, but there's also some waves that you can kind of add around the edge of your coastline, which just give the water a little bit more texture, a little bit more interest. So you can just kind of position them to follow the edge of the coastline. Or if you want to, one thing I should also add is I've included the actual brush that I use to draw all of these features. So that if you want to come in here and add anything, like you want to add a different style of boat or a different type of building, or I was going to say, sometimes I like to just scribble in some lines really quickly around the coastline. But the nice thing about having this brush in here is then you can add whatever you want to, and the line art will all match up. So it just gives you a little bit extra flexibility. Then of course, if we wanted to, we can come in here and we can come down to the different features, and we can add a little bit of a compass up here into our, didn't mean to double it, into the water, so that we can still kind of orient the direction of our map. And yeah, you can see that there's all different types of features and stuff that you can play around with. There's different map keys that you can add in, so that you can make this smaller too, but you can position this on the edge of your map so that you could label in all the different buildings and what they are. And you can see there's different frames. So if you wanted to like stick this on here, we'll just create a temporary layer just so I can show you what I mean. So if you wanted to label that this was a harbor and you didn't want to write out harbor, you could come in here and put this diamond shaped frame on here. And then you could come in and add a little bit of text and just label it whatever number that you need. So then when you add in your map key over here on the side, like this, whoops, forgot that I'm on a text layer, sorry. Just come up here, and if you were adding in a map key over here on the side of your map, all you would do is put a number 7, and then you would write harbor or whatever that you wanted to label it. So there's a lot of flexibility on different things that you can add in And once you're done combining all those different features, here's an example of one of the maps that you can create with all the different features in the city map builder. So you can see I've got waterfalls, the different individual buildings, the bridges that are spanning this river like I mentioned, and then you can see that I've also included some of those frames for the labels so that I could have my map key down here and label all these in. So we have a merchant guild and an apothecary and all these different features that you can combine together to create a map like this. So if you want to pick up the City Map Builder, it's available in the Map Effects shop. And of course it's compatible with Procreate, but it also works in Photoshop, Affinity Photo, and Clip Studio Paint. I hope you found this helpful, and I look forward to seeing your map.